Hello and welcome to episode 7 of Each Sold Separately, Collect Them All, an action figure podcast with me, Colonel Rains Carr, and your friend and mine, Brian Charles Rooney. This week we're going to tell you our top 10 favorite toy lines from the 1990s. Will BCR Duke and Colonel Rains' list coincide? I bet they won't. But take a listen right after this message from our sponsor.
Jet is wiping out the park.
In camouflage gear, air attack Batman takes off.
Knockout gas.
Penguin thinks he's won.
It's Laser Batman.
On his laser blade cycle.
Gotcha.
Instantly, Batman is airborne.
You're grounded, Penguin.
Batman. Figures and vehicles sold separately.
So, Brian Charles Rooney, welcome to episode 7 of Each Sold Separately, Collect Them All, an action figure podcast. How are you and where are you? Why is this podcast coming so late?
This podcast is coming late because I am in Detroit, Michigan.
Why would anyone ever go there?
Actually, Detroit's amazing. It's got it even has a couple brand new comic stores.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah. It's undergoing this crazy renaissance, and
I've read about this.
It's really cool. It's also close to Canada, which is also kind of neat.
Yeah, you might need to escape there soon now that the Mueller report is out.
Yeah. I was in Flint, Michigan yesterday to do a show for the Flint Institute of Music and the Flint Repertory Theater, and then tomorrow night I do 2 shows for the the Detroit Opera House. So fancy.
Well, aren't you the fanciest of the fancy?
Yes, but unfortunately I got hit with laryngitis at the end of last weekend and had to go on 7 medicines to be able to do the shows this week.
Well, fantastic.
So I sound a little rougher than I normally would. Maybe just to myself, I don't know.
You always sound rough to me.
It's been nice here. It's cold, which is not nice, but
it's I've got shorts and t-shirt on. It was 70 degrees here in St. Augustine, so it was pretty great today.
How sad for you.
It was really nice here today. So I've brought you here today to do what is called in the business a top 10 list. And I know that nobody ever does these.
We've
and
never done that
very
before.
Rare. It's very rare, but I enjoy a good top 10 list, and I know you do out there.
Yes, I do.
You toy collectors out there.
Oh, you weren't talking to me. You're talking to them.
Who cares about you?
Who cares about me?
Guys, don't even worry about him. He's thinking about She-Ra anyway. He doesn't care about the 90s because there was no She-Ra in the 90s, so what does he care?
She-Ra.
He doesn't even care. What does he
She-Ra
care?
was biding her time in the 90s.
He doesn't even care.
She-Ra in the 90s would have been interesting.
That would have been weird.
Angela
she would have been
Spawn
she would have been very muscly in some way.
Absolutely no clothes.
That's right. Well, we are going to talk our top 10 toy lines from the 1990s, and let me tell you, this was very difficult for BCR Duke to come up with. Me, no problem. I collected all kinds of toys in the 90s, but I know you didn't collect as much in the 90s. So this was a little hard for you to put together, was it not?
I did collect, but not as many things. So it was a little difficult for me to put together 10.
So it was just I was waiting for He-Man, and that's the only thing on the list?
No, absolutely not. No, I got over my the death of He-Man. Well, see, the early 90s, 1989 allowed for a transition from the death of He-Man in 87, because the New Adventures of He-Man started in 89, and that lasted until roughly 92. It was a terrible line. Cool characters.
I love the characters from that line.
Yeah, but just badly produced in a kind of 90s style. Although, oddly enough, they kind of match up better with the vintage Princess of Power line than the vintage He-Man figures do.
Yeah, I guess they do. I guess they would.
Yeah, which is an interesting thing. But in classics, it's been great because they've done not enough, but some of the characters, and so they fit right in now. And there was a cartoon, and it was kind of silly, but it got pretty heavy as it went along. It's a tough watch if you're used to the vintage style show.
Yeah, I never watched it.
It's a little deep.
I never watched it. I was in high school at the time, so I don't ever remember watching it at all.
It wasn't I don't think it was available in its entirety when I was a kid where we were in New Jersey, because I don't remember watching season 2, but there was a season 2, so
Oh,
I don't know.
interesting.
But yeah, that it took me a little while, but a couple different toy lines helped me get over that GI Joe, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but those all started in the 80s.
They
And
did.
you told me I couldn't have Ninja Turtles on my list, so that gave me there was a
That's
gaping hole
right.
in towards the top of my list. With
I'm
no
so
turtles, so I
sorry.
had to,
It was in the 80s. It started in the 80s. I don't care. This is stuff
Yeah, I
that's
know.
in the 90s only. That's at least started
Yes.
in the 90s. Now, I think everything on my list started in the 90s, and most of it ended in the 90s too, as well. Some of them may have carried on into the early 2000s, but they definitely started in the 90s. And I
Yes.
remember the 90s quite well. I was in high school, and then I went off to college, and at least by 93, I was really collecting quite a bit of toys. And I had a ton of toys in my dorm room, and everyone would come over to check out all the nerdy toys in my dorm room.
Oh man,
I also
that's cool.
I
I did
also-
not have that experience.
I also collected something called Laserdisc back then. And so I had a very large Laserdisc collection, as nerdy as that sounds.
What is that?
It's like
What's
a large, it's like a
Laserdisc?
large DVD that you would put in a
I don't
player, and you'd have
know
to
what that
flip it
is.
over halfway through the movie because I didn't have the fancy player with 2 lasers. I only had 1 laser, so I had to flip it over halfway through the movie. But it was supposedly better quality until you watch it now, and you're like, God, these are crap. They're terrible if you watch them now, but that's pretty funny.
Right.
But so tell me this. Let's go then. Let's go for it. It's let's get this episode out to people. Let's go for it. What's your first caveat? What were you gonna say?
Well, no, I just discovered I'm gonna have to put. No, I just discovered that another one of my choices started in '89. This is not good.
Oh, you are done for. Done.
Yeah, apparently.
For. Well, do you want me to start? Do you want me to start this time?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. While you are trying to figure out a substitute for that, I'll tell you my number 10. So this is Colonel Reigns' number 10 toy line of the 1990s. And it is from a company called Tiger Toys, and it's the Land of the Lost. And it's from not the original
Yes.
Land of the Lost, but the second one that came out in the
Yes.
90s. And the reason I love it, of course, is because there's a couple of cool play sets. They have their cool, Jeep SUV vehicle, and it has a bunch of fun characters. And the toys are cheesy and 90s and terrible and awful. But I really love the play sets, Shung's Lair and the Treehouse. And it's just a really fun, campy kind of line. And I never really watched the show, but I always really loved the toys, and it just has such a fun, strange toy vibe. And for years in the sort of toy collecting community in the early internet days, everyone thought Shung's Lair was some lost toy from the old Remco Warlord line. And forever and ever
Oh.
until somebody was like, no, it's from Tiger's Land of the Lost. But for years and years, we all thought it was some lost. There was some picture of it, and we all thought it was some lost Remco Warlord playset. And we were like, it's so rare, and nobody has one. And then we found out it was from a different line, and we were all stupid. And of course, I have one Minton box sitting on the shelf over here in front of the treehouse, and I've got the dinosaur and all the little figures and stuff. And it's just a fun, very playable, kind of really neat line. And I love the '70s Land of the Lost series. That's the one I grew up with. So it's kind
Right.
of fun. I kind of really enjoy having these. So that's my number 10.
Cool. My number 10,
Oh, yours. Here's BCR
Is-
Dukes, number 10.
The Simpsons by Mattel.
Ooh, that's
Now-
such a great line.
Yeah, it's a small line.
It's tiny. That's why I
Mattel-
didn't make my list. I love it, but I have them
Right.
all. I have them all.
I love them. I didn't have the boob tube and the couch, but
Oh,
I had
wow.
all the other ones.
well, I have an
there-
extra set of those if you need one.
You do?
You bet I do.
Oh.
I have an extra
Oh,
set.
well. Yeah, we'll have to discuss that. No, I didn't even know it existed until a couple months ago.
Wow,
Believe it or not.
really?
Yeah, I went back into my storage and I was looking at some old stuff, and I took those out and set them up and everything and brought them home from the storage. And so I looked up online just to see if they'd made any more. and apparently there was a second wave.
There was that they never
designed,
released. Yeah, that they never
but
released.
they never made them. But then I
Yeah.
discovered that they had they made the boob tube couch set,
Yep.
and I thought, what the heck? Why didn't I know about this? And I remember when I was collecting them, they were kind of really hard to find.
They
at
were
least in-
definitely, yeah.
in
I
my
mean,
area.
yeah. Well, I got them new, so they were easy to find. I got them at Kmart when they were brand new.
No,
Um,
I did too, and it was really difficult when they first came out. I asked for them for my birthday, and I don't think that my mom found Maggie,
Oh, wow.
or Marge. I think I got all the other ones. Nelson, Bart, Lisa,
Yeah, and
Homer,
Homer.
and
Mhm.
Bartman. And then I got the other two later.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it was hard to find them. Like that's still true to this day. Like New York, the tri-state area. I grew up in New Jersey. Tri-state area. Sometimes there are toy lines that are impossible to find, where people all around the rest of the country are like, "What? Why is that hard for you to find?"
Oh, that
But
sucks.
I loved them because they came with these plastic thought bubbles.
Oh, it's the
or
greatest.
speech bubbles, and you could write your own things on some of them because some of them were blank, and they had all their sayings like "Don't have a cow, man,"
Mm-hmm.
or music notes for Lisa or whatever. And Nelson came with a garbage can, and you could put Bart in it.
Yep, and roll them
They were
down.
it was just really cool having action figures of these characters because I was super into The Simpsons from
Oh,
day
yeah.
one.
Me too. From
I had
Tracy
them-
Ullman. From Tracy Ullman, I was into it.
Exactly. Like I
Mhm.
had all of the McDonald's dolls.
Yep, me too.
I still do.
I do too.
Like banners, and I remember when it started. I started collecting the stuff, and it was like I had like a frisbee and
Yep.
posters and
Yep.
folders and notbooks and
T-shirts.
pencils.
I had the Don't Count
Yeah.
Cowman T-shirt and all that. Yep.
It started to get kind of intense initially, and then I just kind of, I think I got the action figures, and that kind of sated the desire. It's because it stopped. But yeah, if it had continued in that with that company with Mattel, I would have been collecting them all along. But that was not to be.
No,
So that is
no, I love that line. I'm a huge Simpsons fan. I have all the Mattel and the Playmates figures, and I have all but a couple of the NECA figures as well, the NECA wafer figures. And,
Right.
my Bart is saying, my Bart has the thought balloon on his head right now that says, "What are you looking at?" But no, I was a huge fan. When the Burger King toys first came out, I had a friend in high school that worked at Burger King, and I worked some deals with him to buy him lunch if he would get them for me.
Right.
And when these came out, I jumped on them. I was crazy about them. I've had them ever since, and I even own 2 sets of them. My dad keeps one action figure next to his bed at night, like on his bedside table, and it's Homer from the Mattel series. Sitting next to his bed. So yeah, well, that's a great line, and we'll definitely have a Simpsons toy and memorabilia show at some point, because I'm a huge fan of that.
We
Huge
absolutely
fan.
need to.
Huge fan. All right, well, my number 9. Number 9 is by Hasbro. Never heard of them before.
No.
Hasbro, and it's a toy line from a movie that came out in 1993. And the movie is called A Nightmare Before Christmas.
Uh-huh.
And those toys from Hasbro are so charming. They're almost like those Matchbox Pee-wee toys where they're so interesting and
Yeah.
so charming that I really, really love them. And I think that's such a wonderful line. I'm a huge Nightmare Before Christmas guy. I have been since I saw it at the movie theater when it came out that fall of 93. And I still collect Nightmare stuff. I've got the Reaction Nightmare stuff, and I've been trying hard not to get the other stuff that's out, but because how many different Nightmare lines can you have? But I really love those, and that's my number 9 is Hasbro's Nightmare Before Christmas.
Number 9.
Number 9.
My number 9 is Hook.
That
Which
garbage made your list?
I
my
knew
God.
you were gonna say that. Yes.
Oh,
I
that
love
trash.
movie.
Oh, those figures are so horrible.
Oh, they're terrible. They're
Oh, I
absolutely
hate
terrible.
you.
And the accessory, the little like wagon and everything
Oh,
is terrible.
no.
I still really liked them. I got really into movie toys when I was a kid in the 90s. If there was a movie and there were toys that went along with it, I was probably going to
I
select
can't
them.
disagree. I love those too. So you have all the Demolition Man toys then.
I don't. No, that's one I did not
Oh man, okay.
do. But yeah, Hook was my and I can't remember which. There were two versions of Peter.
Yep.
One was more kind of like if an adult man were playing like younger Peter from the book cosplay. It was
Yes.
like the
Because
more
they're nothing
standard
like
outfit.
they look nothing like Robin Williams whatsoever. Like absolutely nothing like
it
him.
was more like a man in his mid to late 20s.
Yeah.
And then there was another Peter that was kind of not even really in the movie, sort of, but not. They took liberties.
Oh yeah.
But it was fun. And then the different Lost Boys, Rufio, and they came with these different accessories that were supposed to look like wood, and
Yep.
they were kind of glorified Happy Meal toys.
Yeah,
to be
they were
honest.
pretty rough. They were pretty
But,
rough toys.
But they were fun for me.
No, I can see. Hey, I love that movie. I love that movie at the time, and I totally understand what you're saying. Those suckers clogged the shelves of KB Toys forever,
Mhm.
and I hated them. I was like, please just go away, you crappy Kenner movie toys. Kenner made some crappy ass movie toys back then.
Yeah.
Oh, they were so horrible. But
Yeah.
I'm sure you love them, and it's okay that you love them. Okay. I know that you
do.
love
and I
them.
still have I still have a couple of my originals, and then I bought rebought the ones that I lost, and bought some of the ones that I didn't have.
I'm really sorry for you. If you ever run out of toilet paper, those would probably be a good option for you.
Right. Ouch.
Ouch
kind of
and
pain-
ouch
that'd be
on
kind of
many
painful.
ouch on many levels indeed.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
That was my number 9.
All right. Well, my number 8 is the Toy Biz. Remember old Toy Biz? They made a lot of awesome
yeah.
stuff. Toy Biz is on my list a couple times. They made some pretty great stuff in the 1990s. And one of my favorite lines, my number 8, is Toy Biz's Resident Evil. And
Okay.
I was a huge Resident Evil fan right from the start, and I still am to this day. And it's the only reason I buy game systems are to play Resident Evil and Legends of Zelda. So Legend of Zelda and Resident Evil are the only reasons I ever buy a game system. And so they're the Toy Biz line. The figure that the humans are really weird and awkwardly posed. Those kind of awkward Toy Biz poses of the 90s.
Right.
But the monsters are all beautiful. All of the creepy monsters are all really awesome. Even the dog, where you can like open up his side, and they're really neat. Sort of
I
it's
forgot-
Toy Biz. Yeah, do you remember that line?
No, I mean I know what you're talking about, but I'd forgotten about the details of that stuff. Like
Man.
my cousin had those, and I remember we would play with them when I would visit, but I didn't have any of them on my own.
They were kind of like the real Ghostbusters, where they had those weird like features, like the weird like gouging eyes out features and all those different things, except like bloody, gross versions of those. So they're like bloody, gross versions of the real Ghostbusters. And it was Toy Biz really kind of taking a line and doing something crazy with it. And and it was a really beautiful line, and I mean, they didn't make too many toys. I mean, it's under 20 toys that they made, but I mean, if you go back even now and look at the monsters, at least they actually hold up pretty well. They're pretty great toys.
Right. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a toy line that ends with 15 or 20 things.
No, that's great.
No, it makes it sane.
And now, of course, Palisades toys took over the license in the 2000s, and all those Palisade toys are really, really neat that they made all over the world. And I had all of those for a very long time, and sadly had to get rid of them in the giant purge. But I still have my Toy Biz ones because I really do love those figures. And I think I got those at Babbage's. Did y'all have a Babbage's up there?
I didn't. I never went to one, but I know what I've read about Babbage's.
Yeah, it was like a like a computer game store. Started by Charles Babbage or whatever his name was, one of the computer guys, and they carried toys in the late 90s.
Oh no, we didn't. I guess that's regional. Yeah, there are a lot of places that people talk about, collector friends of mine talk about having, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, it could have been something
Um,
regional. I mean, they had it when I was in college, and we would go there, and that's where they sort of had the edgy toys, like McFarlane toys and
right,
Resident Evil and things like that. Game toys, of course. So
right.
it was a really cool place.
Cool.
Well, what
That's
about what's your number 8?
my number 8 is Aladdin from Mattel. This was
Oh, I
this
love
was
that
such
line.
a
It's 3
fun
feet for me
line.
right now. It's 3 feet
I'm
for me
yes,
right
I'm
now.
sure it is. It was such a fun line. They had this really cool Cave of Wonders playset that
Yes, it
was
is.
mine. Kind of always fell apart. None of the things really worked that well, but it was nice. The other, and then there were two figure sets. One that was the genie, Jasmine, and Raja the tiger, and I think the parrot Iago was in that
Yep.
set
Iago's
too.
in there. Yep.
Um, or maybe. Or
I don't know
maybe
if he was
not.
in
I
that
remember there's a
set,
bird
but
cage, but
there was
no,
a bird cage that has a bird in it. I've got it sitting over
oh,
here.
it's
There's
not.
a little
Then
bird
it's not
cage.
the parrot. Then the parrot came with the other set, which was Aladdin, Jafar, the carpet, and
Yes.
Abu the monkey, and a bunch of treasure stuff. And they came with coins. I don't really know what the
Mhm.
coins.
The coins had faces of the characters on them.
Right. And then, yeah. So I had a play set. I don't know if there was anything else, but
They made Jasmine's dad.
they
And
he
they
didn't.
made a few figures from the Aladdin animated series. So, like, series 2 was figures from the animated series, not from the film.
Okay.
So there's a few like thugs and guards and things
Right.
like that. But the main core movie figures they did make.
I didn't know that they made the father. That's
Yeah, I've got him. I've got him right over here. He's all tiny and short, which is really cute, like he is in the film.
that's cool. Or wait, did he come with the? No, he didn't come with the playset. No.
No, the
Where?
playset
How
came
did?
by itself. It came by itself.
How did he? Did the father come single carded
I
then?
think, yeah, he was single carded. All of them were also single carded as well as in those
Right.
box sets, as that's what they did with all those
Oh,
Mattel
that's
Disney
why.
lines back then. Because I know a lot about them because it may be higher on my list. I'm not
Uh-huh.
sure. I don't know.
I figured it might be. It's such a. I mean, that's another limited line, but it was really fun
Mhm.
and it was well made, and they weren't in actually terrible poses, which is nice.
No, they're
Um,
fantastic for
yeah.
animated toys that are made
Yeah.
for kids. These are Mattel made great Disney lines in the 1990s.
Yes, and they didn't fall apart.
Nope. I mean, mine are. These are what, 25 years old. They look brand spanking new. I mean, and
Mhm.
I've had them for a long time, and they're just fantastic toys. Just such they're. We'll get to some more of those down. Once we get down a couple more, you might hear some more about some Mattel Disney toys. You just might. I'm not really sure. You
big
might.
shock. I'm totally shocked by that.
You just might.
Yeah, I was trying to think. They didn't really do, or at least I wasn't aware of any other like the female lead movies didn't really have action figure lines that I knew about anyway.
Mulan,
I mean,
Mulan had a line.
oh really?
Yep, Beauty and
I didn't know
Beauty and the Beast did not. They only had
No.
dolls because that was sort of the first
Right.
one. Little Mermaid didn't have any.
Little
They had
Mermaid had the
dolls.
Happy Meal toys
Right,
though,
they
and
had
that I
those, and they
used.
had dolls. But after you
Yeah.
get to Hunchback, they have toy lines for Pocahontas, and they have toy lines for Mulan,
Right.
and they got
Right, Pocahontas I do
Hercules,
remember.
and they have Lion King, and they have Aladdin. They
Mhm.
have most of those 90s films got a really nice toy line from Mattel.
Yes.
Starting with that Lion King line. That's the oldest one of all those. Well, my number 7. Number 7 is something that started in the 90s. It sort of changed action figures for the better and maybe for the worse. I'm not really sure. That's a debatable topic. Is some crazy guy that drew Spider-Man decided to start his own toy company, and he made a lot of really cool toys. And it's,
God, I knew you were gonna have his toy
and,
line on your list.
I was really excited about them when they came out, and
Yes,
not so
everyone
excited.
was.
Not so excited about them a few years later because I
Yes.
hate toys that are just statues. But when they first came
Right.
out, they had some decent playability, and they were really nice. And this is, of course, McFarlane's Spawn line,
Yes.
which was super popular. They, of course, had the Spawn Alley playset, which I have right over here. And they had a lot of really cool toys. Like, my favorite one is called The Heap. He's like a giant pile of garbage. And he's got all this garbage, like glass shards and all this cool stuff. And he's one of my favorite toys
That's-
in my entire toy room. Like he's one of my all-time favorite toys.
That is such a ripoff.
Of course it
Trash
is.
Heap from Fraggle Rock.
Of course, it's a McFarlane. McFarlane's a ripoff of everything.
It's the trash heap.
McFarlane's a ripoff of everything. You know that. But my
that's-
favorite, one of my top 5 toys of all time is from the McFarlane Spawn toy line, and that is the
Really?
Max, the Max figure, the big purple dude with the
Oh,
hook hands.
yeah.
That is one of my all-time favorite action figures ever made, and he only has like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points of articulation. And still, he is such an incredible action figure that jumps right off the page of the comic book. It's by a guy named Sam Keith, created that comic book, and it's still one of my all-time favorite toys. But McFarlane Spawn was a great toy line for the first few years, and then they were like, you know what? I don't want to make action figures anymore that have articulation. We're going to make a bunch of statues.
Yeah.
And it
it's
pissed
cheaper.
me off. It's cheaper, and it pissed me off, and so I stopped collecting them probably around 96 or 7.
Well, and that Spawn line, like, yielded kind of smaller, cheaper lines too. And I don't remember who made them. That they were like the Spawn lines were like, and Angela was made in like 7 different versions, and Lady Death. There was like a Lady Death.
That's on the regular Spawn line. Lady Death was by More Collectibles. Yeah, because those Spawn toys were so popular, tons of companies made different toys like that.
Right. I mean, and they all had this kind of similar aesthetic. And then they had thousands of repaints of the same figure.
That
They
was
would be-
McFarlane. He did that
Yeah.
over and over and over again. Mm-hmm.
that was when my customizing started. And we're gonna have to do an episode about that.
Oh, for
because
sure, yeah.
I started kind of buying those and then Frankensteining them apart, like ripping them apart, putting them back together, using them on other figures to make figures for X-Men, figures for DC, things that I wasn't finding in the store.
Right.
But that I wanted for myself. So the pieces from those were usually really cool to use for other figures. And they were usually pretty easy to peel off the base figure.
Yeah,
Because they were not always attached all that well.
My other
yeah.
my other favorite figure from that line is something called the Freak. And he's just this crazy looking guy with rooted hair, like rooted gray hair, and he sort of looks like a half human, half zombie. And he comes with like just tons of different knives and different creepy weapons. So he's just like a creepy weirdo, and his name's the Freak. And he was in the. So there's all kinds of hilarious weird figures they made, and I had probably 50 of them at one point. And I finally got I got rid of most of them. I probably got about, what do I got over there? I probably only got about 15 left out of the original ones, and I still
Wait a minute.
have a lot of fun with them.
I think I bought him for the pieces, for the Scythe.
Of course, he has exactly. He had so many cool
I totally
pieces.
bought him for the Scythe. That's so funny.
He had so many cool pieces that he came with. And I know a lot of people have a lot of reverence for that line, and I did have a great time with that line when it came out.
Of course.
But I got over it real fast when they started becoming statues, and I pick and choose McFarlane toys. Like I pick and choose them. Because most of them
a lot
either
of the collectors do.
Yeah, most of them
Because that's
break the second you take them out of the packaging.
Yes, they break, and there were so many different ones, and at least from my perspective, and so many variants. I mean, you'd have one, and then you'd have it on a different card back, and then you'd have a different color, and it was like, how do you even keep track? Particularly back then, when there wasn't really an internet, collective ready to tell you in 2 seconds what is available and what isn't.
Yeah, no, of course. And it was just, and trust me, I was with the flea market people and all the scalpers, and they would try and push those variants. And I was like, these toys are going to be worthless, which they are. They are 100% worthless. There's like one Spawn figure that's even, semi-collectible in the aftermarket. And most of them are $20 and under and just totally worthless. And these are 25-year-old figures, and they're totally worthless.
Right.
They're like the fancy version of Powers of the Force figures from the 90s,
That's a good, yeah, that is a good comparison. I know the Wildcats line was kind of related. Was that McFarlane too?
It was not McFarlane. That was a different company that made those, and I can't remember who made those. But yeah, they were sort of in that similar style, but they were more like a real kind of glossy plastic look to them.
Yeah, different, more cartoon, a little more cartoon,
slightly more cartoony in the sculpting for sure. Well, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves by Kenner, which
oof, you're coming in right under the wire. 1991.
Yeah, that movie. Now, as a kid, I didn't notice that Kevin Costner did not have a British accent, and I didn't notice until years later. And someone was writing about the movie, and I was like, "What?" And then I went back and watched it, and I thought, "What in the hell? Who?" And then I think he directed it, so it didn't. I guess that's why he got away with it.
It was his buddy that directed it. It was his buddy, but yeah.
Okay.
But he was a huge star. I mean, he's just won for Dances with Wolves, and like he was a huge star at the time, so he could do whatever the hell he wanted.
But I loved the movie. I thought it was fun, and I'd always been into Robin Hood anyway, like in any form. Ivanhoe was a story that I really liked. So it's just kind of similar. So it's and that toy line, that was a cool toy line. It had a lot of detail. They had like the Azim figure was one of my favorites because it had this cool robe and headscarf thing, and the crossbow Robin Hood was just perfect. Me. It had a cape with a hood. It had a crossbow. Had this kind of tan and khaki colored uniform. That was the Robin Hood figure I needed. Even though
I just love that they came.
Is green, but I loved that.
I love that they came with arrows that you could fire.
Yes, you could. Yeah,
that was my favorite part of those figures. Yep.
The best part, though, which is a thing we both share, is that is the affinity for play sets. They had the Sherwood Forest play set, which was a repurposed
Ewok Forest. That whole line is repurposed.
But added, yes, it is. But added
like bushes on the top, like tree tops.
Tree canopy out of plastic, which made it look better.
Yep,
I think
it did look better. Actually, I thought it was I really loved that update of that playset, and I, of course,
it was great.
Have owned that whole line at some point in my life, and when that came out, my girlfriend and I at the time, it was our favorite thing to go see, and we saw it 5 times, and we cried when Bryan Adams sang the "Everything I Do for You." We would cry and hold hands.
Oh.
And it was very sweet because I was like 16 years old when it came out. So like, I love that film. I love the toys. Those are toys I definitely bought at the time. And I had everything until a few years ago when they were part of the Purge too. But
oh my God.
But my all-time, my
like
favorite, the one that I never found back then was Will Scarlet.
I didn't either.
I had got him much later,
a couple of years ago,
and I never found the variants, like the first wave where the Kevin Costner head was not there, where it was like a weird random guy's head. Of the 2 Robin figures had the other like just a random guy's head, and then they updated it to be a Kevin Costner head.
Yeah, I think
but that's the variant in that line. Or those 2 Robin Hood figures have 2 variants.
I don't remember which one mine
probably had Kevin Costner. You probably had Kevin
mine
Costner.
looked like him. I don't remember.
And it was a great likeness. I mean, it was a fantastic likeness of him in that. In those, and I think that's such. I mean, what's funny is the sculpts that they used were like 5 and 6 years old because it was like the Green Arrow from Superpowers was the Robin Hood figure.
Right.
And Friar Tuck was a Gamorrean guard with a new head and a robe.
Right.
And it was like, why does he have such furry underpants on?
One of the Sheriff of Nottingham was cool too because he had a metal chain.
It's an Alan Rickman action figure. It's an Alan Rickman. And if you go back, I recently watched that film about 2 months ago, and it is the campiest. It is the campiest. It's like a bad Rocky Horror. Like it's the campiest thing. It's like watching Xanadu. It is so campy that I'm really surprised that people haven't made it a Midnight movie because it's just can't. Especially his performance is so ridiculous. I mean, it's almost like Phyllis Diller as the Sheriff of Nottingham through his body, and it is so strange. And it's just the funniest. If you go back and watch it, it's just, and I still love it. I absolutely love it. But it is the campiest, crappiest thing. and that toy line's great.
Yeah, I really liked it. I mean, the playset made it extremely fun for me
It did.
because
And the battle wagon that they repurposed.
yes,
yeah.
the battle wagon, absolutely. I remember at the time thinking, I can't remember, there was a wagon in Hook too, and I can't remember now. One of them made me think, oh, they reused this ladder. There was a ladder that was part of it, and it was the Grayskull ladder.
Yep.
But maybe that was Hook, because I think Hook was
think
Mattel.
that's Hook. Yeah, it was Hook. It was the stuff that Kenner used was all the stuff from Return of the Jedi and Power of the Force.
Right.
They just repurposed all of that and all of Superpowers. It's like they just put those two lines together, repainted them, put a few cloth outfits on them, and that's the thing I really loved about those figures was, like you said, Azim's headdress and all that. The cloth outfits I thought were so cool on those figures.
Oh, totally. They were. Yeah, that was a great example of really well made soft goods.
Yep.
Done well, and
Yep.
and no cut corners, I thought.
No, not at all.
Nice,
And I know a lot. There's a guy that I follow on Instagram, and I can't remember his name, but he makes custom figures of the Series 2 ones that never came out, like Richard the Lionheart.
Oh,
And
wow.
I'll have to tag you in one
Was
of
there
his
was
photos.
there a Maid Marian in that?
I think
too, or
he
no?
did one, but I don't think there was supposed to be one. I don't think she was ever supposed to be made. But there was a Series 2
stupid.
that was on the that was shown at like in toy fair magazines and stuff like that.
Right.
Which was like Azim with a new outfit and another Robin Hood and his red outfit and all kinds of stuff that wasn't in the movie. And they had a Richard the Lionheart of Sean Connery, and this guy has done customs of all the ones they were supposed to make. And they're really cool.
wow.
I'll have to tag you in those on Instagram. Then we'll put, if I can find them, I'll hook that guy up to our Instagram as well.
Yeah, please.
So I'll try and get through this one quickly. Number 6. This is a tough one because I pulled a BCR Duke and I lumped a whole bunch of stuff together into one line. And that is the Mattel Disney lines that we talked about before.
Oh, okay.
So I lumped them all together. And that includes Lion King, Aladdin, Pocahontas, Hunchback of Notre Dame. Those are all and Mulan. Those are all sort of in the same scale, the same action figure scale. They changed the scale for Hercules, but those are still great figures too. But the action figure lines that are really like playable action figures from Pocahontas and Mulan and Hunchback, especially because they did make a Hunchback playset of Notre Dame playset, and each of them have a playset. Each of them, well, Mulan's is sort of like a training playset when Li Shang's sort of training them all. The "let's get down to business" that scene. There's like the big pole that she climbs and all that stuff. And each of them had a playset. Each of them was well sculpted. Each of them is very movie accurate for that time period. I mean, extremely movie accurate, like we talked about with the Aladdin toys.
Right.
Especially the Hunchback, which is my all-time favorite Disney film. All of those figures are perfectly screen accurate. I mean, it's one of the best things Mattel's ever done are the Disney lines of the 1990s. I mean, they still hold the dang Disney license to this day and still make all the Disney toys. I mean, I've got the Mattel Inside Out toys and all those things. I mean, they still make all their. They have got a great relationship with them, which I'm sure Disney will take away at some point. But
Well,
I'm a huge fan of all those 90s Disney action figure lines because they're so playable. They are action figures. They're meant for boys and girls. And so
yes, they are.
They're meant for both. And that's what I love about them is they were for everyone. And even for adults, because I knew tons of adults that collected them as well. And they were such just great figures. Tons of great accessories. All the little friends like Jolly and Mushu and Iago and everybody. Miko and Percy and like all the great little figures came with these and tons of accessories. And were there any other lines you collected besides Aladdin back then? Or since then?
I feel like I had the Peter Pan ones too. When did those come out?
Like Peter Pan and the Pirates?
No, Peter Pan, Walt Disney's Peter Pan. There was like a Peter Pan, Captain Hook, Tinkerbell set, and they also had coins, and it was just like the Aladdin box.
Boy, what were those?
And it came with the same. It came with the same treasure chest.
Oh, that's not the Famosa ones, the ones from Spain that came out later.
No.
Wow, they had a Peter Pan line too.
I mean,
I don't remember these.
This is my sister. Through my sister more.
I don't remember these at all.
Wait, let me look them up. Let me see if I can.
Don't you dare.
see if I can look this up.
I've never heard of those. Now, Peter Pan and the Pirates, which was an animated show at the time, had
No,
toys.
no. This is Disney Peter Pan.
And the only Disney Peter Pan toys I can think of, besides some of the Disney Store ones, are the ones by Famosa, that Spanish company that makes the really incredible Disney action figures that are overseas, and we barely get any of them here.
Yeah, 1993. I knew that this.
What?
Here, I'm gonna text this to you.
You're gonna have to text me and also post a picture on our Instagram, because I've never heard.
Yeah,
I've never seen these.
I don't know. I don't know if they. I guess they'd be with my Aladdin stuff, unless my sister has them.
Wow.
I don't know if they made any more than just the one box, but it was the same kind of blue plastic insert. Yeah.
Very interesting.
And similar thing. The treasure chest, I think, was exactly the same.
Oh, they are. Okay, I remember these, and these are Mattel. You're right. Oh, no, see, these are Disney Store exclusives. That's what it says on the box.
Oh, that's why.
These are Disney Store made for...
But
Mattel made a ton of
Mattel,
stuff just for the Disney Store, and they are in the same style. And the reason I never saw these is because I didn't see a Disney Store until I moved to Los Angeles, because they didn't have them. They didn't have them down here.
Terrible.
They didn't have them down here until after I was in college and gone.
And then they re-released it in '93, same set in a different package.
Very interesting.
With that was not a Disney Store exclusive, but I don't know what. Interesting. I never saw these.
Yeah, any of that Disney Store stuff from the 90s, I never, ever saw any of it, and there's so much cool stuff that the Disney Store does that nobody else gets. And I still collect a lot of Disney Store stuff to this day, of course.
And not every Disney Store gets the same things, or at least they used to. And that's changed a lot. There was a change a couple of years ago where, like, the play sets and the action figures and the toys were decidedly just changed. They're less playable in a way.
They are less
collectible playable.
They're more like for kids. They're not adult style toys.
Yeah, little kids, or they're like collectibles.
Yep. Because how great were those Disney Store Pirates of the Caribbean figures? I mean, those were awesome. I love those figures. But yeah, they're not. I was just there 2 days ago, and they've got a lot of great stuff. But it's nothing that I wanted to buy because it wasn't super playable for me. And
they've
that's
got
all
like
that
a new,
matters.
a new like kind of pop art-ish version of the princesses, kind of with their house, which is kind of cool, but it's not like
it's
this
just not the
stuff
same.
was.
The coolest thing I saw at the Disney Store recently is from Wreck-It Ralph. They have the entire set of the princesses from the, I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen the trailer where the little character runs into all the princesses, and it has them all there with all their and their little action figures. They're all articulated little action figures with soft goods clothing. And it's a really cool set of all of them together, but it's $100, so I don't have it yet.
Yeah, no. $100. Disney, you don't need $100.
What's your number 6?
My number 6 is Dick Tracy from Playmates.
Wow.
I love that line so much.
Those squat little guys that look like they're pooping in their pants.
Oh, and they are falling apart now. They are. Johnny, here's a warning before we even talk about this line. If you decide to get any of these off of eBay or from a show or something, and they're mint on card, do not open them, because if you do, and you move the legs, they just snap off. It's like what's been going on lately with the new Funko stuff, where you like look at it wrong and it just falls apart. This is, I don't know, I guess the plastic has just, whatever was the mix of the plastic from Playmates at the time may have not been super resilient. But yeah, I bought a couple for a friend for a Christmas gift, a Secret Santa thing, and they apparently, and I bought one an Itchy to replace the Itchy that I had that I lost, and I opened it and his legs came off.
Ooh.
And then I said to my friend, and a friend of mine said, yeah, I bought a bunch of them and the same thing happened. They all broke.
Yikes.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's like regional, because some people collect toys and the toys are discolored.
I love koi.
Temperature.
Koi are my favorite.
Koi fish. The colors change, plastic changes depending on the region, depending on the temperature. But I don't know if it's a constant throughout the world. I don't know.
Yikes.
But it was definitely not just in the one case of the one figure. But that being said, when Dick Tracy was announced, I was super excited because I loved the character. I was super into the vintage cartoon when they put it up. We kind of put it back up on TV because of the movie.
Yep.
They had the watch that came out, and it was on a blister card, and it lit up or it made little noises, and it was actually a watch. It worked. And then they started releasing the figures, and they had the cars, and Flat Top was impossible to find, and then I ended up getting him for my birthday, and the Blank, which I desperately wanted because I loved Madonna.
But you didn't
and I
live
loved
in
her
Canada.
character.
But you didn't live
No, I
in
didn't.
Canada, so you were screwed.
No, and they didn't release it. They didn't release her until the end because she was part of like the second release because I guess they didn't want to spoil the movie.
Yeah, because she had a
Because
cover over her face in the packaging.
Yeah, she comes with the cover, and it's an action figure of her, and then they had them like in a big shipment, I guess, in Canada, the distribution center, and some guy, I wanted to say jerk, but he's not a jerk. He just did what he had to do. So he bought like all of them.
Yep.
And has made a killing because they're hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, they go for about $700-800 right now.
Yeah. I know someday I'll get one, but I'm not going to be able to take it out of the package.
There's a
legs will fall
guy,
off.
the guy who owns a toy store in my town, Doug, he found a guy that had nothing but 90s toys in his house everywhere, like a hoarder house.
Right.
And he found like 13 of them.
What?
And he posted it in all the groups on Facebook, so I'm sure you saw it about a year or so ago.
No.
But he posted that he had them, and he sold them all for over $500 each. So there was a whole bunch of. He has one sitting in his store still to this day. So if you have a lot of money, I'll go get it for you up the street. But I have seen it in person. I've seen it actually loose in someone's collection. It is such a cool Madonna figure, and that's the reason I collected that line. And the reason I stopped collecting it is because I could never get that figure. So I was just like, get out of here. And I got them when they were new, and I got so mad that we can never get like the other main character. Right. And I was like, I'm out of this. Forget about it. And I love them because they're campy and stupid looking and cheesy and they're so cheesy. Yeah, they're just fun cheesy figures.
I would use the like many of my '90s collections. I would use the Real Ghostbusters Firehouse as their kind of command.
They fit right in there. Center. He'd fit right in there. Yeah. No problem at all.
The car fit. The bad guy's car fit. It was great. The other thing that bothered me though about that, I didn't know that the Blank wasn't really like I didn't find anything out about the Blank figure.
She was in all the toy magazines at the time that I was reading, and that's where I found out about them.
I didn't know any of that as a kid, so I just thought I never found it, and it sucked. I also was mad that they never made a Breathless figure, like
of course
in a dress or like in the coat or whatever, so that
of course
you could have somebody to part of the plot because she was so kind of integral to the plot of the movie.
Yeah.
So it was like that was frustrating.
It was,
or even an 88 Keys figure because he was important too.
And that's what pissed me off about that line is you had all these great characters and so many cool character choices, and yet we didn't get the most important ones.
The kid, and
the kid, and I'm just like, where were these characters? I think they sculpted the kid, but I don't think he ever got made. That little kid that grew up to look hilarious, but yeah, that was a fun little line. I'm really surprised that made your list. I'm excited about it. I love that.
Oh, I loved it. Loved that.
Well, my number 5 is something we talked about last week. And so I'm not going to get too crazy about it, but it's, of course, Hasbro's Power of the Force line. And when that came out in 95, all the way up through episode 1 in 99, I was on board. I was crazy. I had everything carded and loose. I had everything that you can imagine, from the 12-inch to the 3 3/4 to everything. Play sets, vehicles, anything you can imagine. My entire apartment in college was nothing but a whole wall of carded Star Wars figures, and I still had
my God.
I still had the photos of hundreds of them on the wall of my college apartment. And so I had hundreds and hundreds of them. I stalked the Walmarts at midnight. I went through the cases. I was a real nerd about those because it ignited that fervor in the 90s that some of my lines a little higher than this that I'm going to tell you about in a minute did the same. And It was so exciting. My friend Brian, who was on the podcast last week, and I collected them together. We had everything. And then, like I told you last week, I purged them all. So it was a great line. I still retain one or two of those figures from the 90s, but not very many.
Which ones?
I still have R2-D2, Princess
Yes.
Leia, the good one, the second one they released, not the original one. And who else is over there? I think the Chewbacca, the Hoth Chewbacca. Those are the only ones I have that are from the 90s
Wow.
left. And I had everything, hundreds of figures. And like I told you, they're all gone now.
Well, they've made room for other things.
They have, and I love them, and they got loved for a
Yeah.
long time. So that's okay. So what's your number 5?
That's a-
no, go
That's a
ahead.
good thing about being a toy collector is that you can absolutely
Oh, sure.
rotate things out.
Yeah, they cycle in and out of your life. Sometimes you sell stuff, you want to get it back. I've done that many, many times. Like right now, I'm trying to get my Filmation Ghostbusters back. I want to recollect Thundercats, stuff like that. So it's like, it goes through waves. It goes in waves. So what's in the
Yes.
top 5 here? We're up the top 5.
My number 5 is Toy Biz's Marvel Superheroes line.
Oh.
Yes.
The
Which
the
was-
first one? So the first one.
What? I don't know what.
So
What do you
like
mean?
the one that had like the crappy yellow Wolverine with the claws that went in and out, and
No, because that's a different.
that's the X-Men line. That's the X-Men
different
line.
line.
That is a different line. So which
Um,
is the
no,
which
this
is the
is-
which
this
is
is
which is this
crappy Spider-Man with the suction cups on his
one? Right,
hands.
the Hulk with like the
Hulk
crushing,
with the pull
crushing
where
action.
you pull the little plastic thing.
Yes.
It's like a plastic string, like not
Yes.
string, but it's like a
and
solid
he
plastic
crushes the little rock
tab,
that
and
he
he
comes
crushes
with.
the rock.
The really ugly
Um,
Captain America.
Ugly Captain America.
Yes,
I didn't
okay.
have Thor. I
Yeah,
don't know
that
if Thor
Thor
was.
he's
Maybe
pretty
Thor was a
ugly,
little
too.
later.
He's pretty. No, he's in that same line too. He's from that same line.
But he might not have been in the first wave. I had who else did I have from that? Iron Man with the snap-on parts.
Yep.
And who else was from that? Why can't I think of? Oh, Silver Surfer,
Punisher,
Mr. Fantastic, Punisher for sure,
and his van, which is a
Uh,
very collectible toy now.
and his wind-up gun shooting
Yep.
sound
Yep.
was terrible.
Oh, also my
Um,
favorite figure from that line was the Venom, and he had a little
Yes.
voice
There were-
back he
there
came
were-
with, and it
there were a
said,
couple Venoms.
"I'm going to eat your brain," is what the thing
Yes,
would say. I love
yes.
that thing.
There were a couple Venoms. There was one that had the tongue that came out, which was much
Yep,
better than the first
pushing out tongue
first one.
Yep.
The first one I think came with ooze or something, and
Yeah.
you could like
Mhm.
you could squish the ooze out of him.
Yeah, there was Venom, and then I'm trying to think of some of the other ones because once that line ended, they got into X-Men, they got into Spider-Man animated, Fantastic
Well, no,
Four
X-Men-
animated, Hulk
X-Men was-
animated, all that
Wasn't
stuff.
X-Men kind of at the same time? Didn't it start at the same
X-Men
time?
started just after that line. Like they were just on the
Right.
heels of that line, and then after that, by '94, you get to Spider-Man animated, and then you
Right.
get to Fantastic Four animated, Hulk animated, all of those
Right.
those cartoons that we never got where I was. But the toys are awesome, and I collected everything. I have all of those toys, and I still have them all.
I guess I had in that the Fantastic Four in that Toy Biz Marvel line.
Yes,
I didn't have Invisible Woman until later, but I had Thing.
And there's a few versions. There's like 3 or
Mr.
4
Fantastic and
versions of
Human
that.
Torch.
Yeah, there's a few versions of that Invisible Woman and the Human Torch as
Yeah.
well. There's a few different versions.
Yeah, so that was my and again used the firehouse for that.
Of
as my
course, they're
display.
5 inches
That
tall. Why
and-
wouldn't you?
And I built a city thing out of different boxes, and I used paint to kind of make them into office building
Oh
or
yeah,
demo building with like
that's so cool.
popsicle sticks to X out the windows so it looked like it was condemned.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. It was actually that one I was really proud of. And I
Did you
made
ever
little levels
have?
inside.
That is so cool. Did you ever have the
it was
X-Men
cool.
playset, like the Danger Room playsets, and then they made a whole like X-Room sort of command center playset?
I didn't have any of the play sets from any of those
Oh.
lines. It was terrible.
Who
I
are you,
I
and
think
why are
only
you
because I
talking
never
to me?
What?
I said, "Who are you, and why are you talking to
Oh.
me?"
I don't know who I am. I know. No, I know it's ridiculous. I always had play sets if a line had them. I never saw those. I never
Wow,
saw
really?
in no, and I was collecting them by going on the train from my town. New Jersey has a lot of commuter trains. It's very connected. So I would go from my town, Ramsey, and then we moved to this other town, Mawa, and then I would go to Ridgewood, which was like where Starcom comic store was, and 3 other comic stores, and that's where I would buy the toys.
Oh wow.
And then it was really where I would collect them, or Bradley's, which was this kind of smaller version of like Target. It was it was a great store. And they had those toys as well. But we lost our Toys and Sports Warehouse, which was the toy store in my town where I got like all of my major toys.
That's horrible.
Yeah, and then there was like Child World, which was the Children's Palace equivalent.
I've
the same
heard,
company.
I've heard of that place.
And there wasn't a Toys R Us near me. Like, it was far, so we rarely went to Toys R Us.
Oh wow, that sucks.
Yeah, but I mean, I went to enough toy stores. There were like independent ones a lot where I lived. So, but at that time, it was really just getting toys in that town when I would go on the train.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
But it was
collected.
fun.
I love those
It's like a
toy.
20, you know,
the
20
Toy
minutes.
Biz lines was when I took a couple years off in high school. It's the Toy Biz superheroes and the X-Men line that brought me back into toy collecting full time. And
Yes.
so I may have one of these Toy Biz lines higher on my list. So I'll let you
Yes.
know in a minute. But number 4 is possibly, arguably, one of the greatest lines of all time. It is Kenner's Batman the Animated Series.
Yes.
And it was and I'm talking strictly the animated series. I'm not
Yes,
talking
yes.
Batman Returns
No, I know,
and all that.
I know,
those
I know,
Arctic
I
variants
know.
and all that nonsense. I'm talking
Don't
the
worry.
animated series.
Variants
They
and all that
made
nonsense.
All that
Excuse
nonsense.
you?
Yes, that crap.
Nonsense.
All that crap.
Okay, well, we'll see. We'll see.
I'm sure
We'll
it's
see.
probably your
See
number
about
one
your
is
nonsense.
Kenner's Batman,
Well, we'll see.
but the animated series, great figures, great likenesses of the TV show, one of the best cartoons ever made. And
Yeah.
such a cool line. Once they finally made the Robin from that series, I went out of my mind because Robin's my favorite DC. Dick Grayson's my favorite DC character. And
With that
I went
amazing
totally
hang
out of-
glider.
Oh my
It was
gosh.
so cool.
So cheesy and awesome. And I loved it so much. And they continued that line forever. It went on forever and ever. And they
Yeah.
made almost the entire Rogues Gallery. And they all are so well done. And I'm so happy that they're being remade now as 6-inch figures. And it's such a cool... I don't collect those anymore, but that's such a cool line and such a cool TV show. And it captured it in plastic perfectly to me.
Oh, totally. Totally. I loved that line. That was I mean, I'll just be quiet.
Okay,
Yes.
we'll move on. What's your number 4?
Yes.
What's your number 4?
Well, we don't need to move on, but
Oh,
but
okay.
You know, well,
Oh, it's okay. Tell me your number 4. What's your number
these
4?
are all gonna bleed into
Yeah,
each other.
we're
Probably.
getting close. We're getting close to the end here. Yeah, it's gonna get close.
My number 4 is Toy Biz DC superhero line, which did not start in '89. It was a rebranding, sort of the Toy Biz Batman movie line,
Yes.
sort of, and a reuse of the Superpowers figures line.
Yep.
Superpowers was not something I was really aware of. Like, I don't know
You
how
were
I
probably
missed
too
it. I was,
young for those. They were like
I was-
84, 85. You were probably too young
yeah,
for
but
those
I was
guys.
aware. I mean, I was collecting He-Man. Like, I don't know. I don't know. I just didn't see them.
You were too
I guess
busy
it was
into shirtless furry dudes than superheroes.
Yeah, I guess so.
I guess. I don't know.
But I loved them. I immediately was like, "Where's the girl?" Like, that was always a thing for me. Where's the playset? Where's the girl?
Yeah, of course.
So,
I love those. Yeah.
They had a Wonder Woman, and
Yep.
she was hard to find initially, and then she was pretty easy to find. And I bought 3 of them because the first 2, the leg snapped off. Like,
Ugh.
it was the first experience I had with a frozen limb.
No.
Where like, yeah, like I mean, I didn't know what it was at the time.
Horrible.
Now you get a toy like that and you like freeze it or
Yep,
something and then
yep.
it moves. But this, I would move the legs and it would just come right off.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and so I was like, what? Because she was so hard to find. But they had Superman with his, and there was a ring
Yep. Yep.
that
had a magnet in it and knocked him over.
And that
in a
really
great cloth cape.
ugly Lex Luthor, the big
Lex Luthor that
fat belly
punched him-
Lex Luthor.
punched himself in the head. They had Hawkman, they had
Yep.
Green Lantern, they had Flash, and they had a couple different versions of Flash. Mine had the you put him on this little skateboard thing that looked like he was running, and
Yep,
you pull it
I
back and he
remember
would
that
go.
one. Yep.
Mr.
Boy,
Freeze,
these
and
are
he would change
whoa.
colors.
Yep, these are just like 1990. These are probably like March
Yes.
1990. Yeah.
It started in 1990 and ran, I
Yep.
think, a year and or
Yeah, they
maybe
weren't out,
2 years.
They weren't out too long because they
that
transferred
long.
to other stuff. Yeah.
And then who else did I have? Two-Face.
Yep, that Two-Face is actually pretty cool. I like that Two-Face.
Yeah. Penguin.
He's the one. That Two-Face is the one that comes like the coin stuck in his hand, right?
Yes, and you
Yeah,
twist it,
that's
and
right.
it turns. Penguin, which was like an absolute superpowers.
Yeah, just a
copy.
total repaint. Total repaint. Yep.
And then who else did they have? Robin, yellow caped classic Robin.
Yes.
Um,
he did not look as nice as the superpowers one, and he was a little bit different than that one. Just slightly different
Yeah.
than that one.
Well, and there were two different versions too. I think one that was like slightly more like the superpowers, and one that wasn't.
Yeah.
Variant wise, and a lot of those had slight variations. I'm trying to think of what other ones I had. That may have been it. They didn't make a Catwoman for that line.
No, they
which
didn't.
pissed
She
me
came.
off.
She came out later. She came out in the
Yeah.
Kenner line. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but yeah, that was a little annoying because that would have been a great way to get either the purple Catwoman that they'd ever made for. That wasn't really part of superpowers. I don't know. There's a debate about whether or not Catwoman and a couple other figures were planned for superpowers.
And they put them. Yeah, they put them in the other.
Or they were actually just some other thing. I don't know. But I would have loved the purple dress, green cape Catwoman
Ooh, yeah, that would have been a cool
in
one.
that line. That would have been cool.
That would have been very cool.
Especially with the cloth cape. That would have been neat.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that is my number 4.
That is not
I
bad at
loved that
all.
line.
Well, my number 3 is going to go back to a company called McFarlane Toys. I know you're going to gag. You're going to gag. Don't gag. But this line at the time, because I'm such a horror movie fan, was the only place I could get horror movie figures, and I only have one left. No, I have 2 left. I've got Chucky and Ash from Evil Dead left.
Yes.
And this is the only place you could get horror movie figures at the time, and I think I bought most of mine at Spencer, probably. And this is, of course, McFarlane's Movie Maniacs, which was a pretty cool, really neat movie line. They made all kinds of really neat movie monsters, including current ones at the time, like Scream, the Scream guy, and all of that stuff. And that was a line that I really took to because I love horror films. I always have. Especially Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn was my go-to movie at Blockbuster or whatever video store before Blockbuster. If we couldn't figure out what to rent, we would rent. Yeah, exactly. We would rent Evil Dead every weekend if we had to, if we couldn't figure anything out. So I love that.
Oh my god, that's so funny.
And it's the first Evil Dead toy ever made. And so that hooked me to the line right off the bat. And I still have that Evil Dead toy with the rest of my Evil Dead toys over on the shelf over there. But I really love that line. And I had so much nostalgia for it when I was thinking about the 90s that I had to put it this high on the list.
Of course. Well, no, I mean, that's a cool line. And I don't know that there's anything else like that.
Not really from that era. I mean, now, of course, that's a dime a dozen. I mean, Necco wafers or NECA makes 1 million of these lines. But
yeah, that's true now. Yeah,
nowadays,
but I mean,
it was,
other than
back then, there was slim pick until Palisades came along in the 2000s. There wasn't a lot of this stuff going around, and McFarlane's sort of the first one that dipped their toe into sort of rated R action figure lines, which they people didn't think would be popular.
I always kind of regarded that stuff because it was, you're right, like Spencer's was a store that had it. There was another store like Spencer's that had, it wasn't Hot Topic, but it was like kind of.
Yeah, it was pre-Hot Topic. I can't remember.
Adult cousin version of Hot Topic. It was something else. I can't remember the name of it, but it was in all the Jersey malls. And then the comic shops that I would go to had these.
They always had those.
But always kind of like the toy plastic versions of like the same style aesthetic or feeling of like the old heavy metal t-shirt album cover art. Like that felt like it was all from the same universe to me.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can understand that.
that stuff probably influenced the people who were designing those toys.
I think that you're probably, and I think those are the type of people that wear those shirts that design those toys. In fact,
Yeah.
you ask Cornboy. I think he designed a bunch of those toys.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, and those people were all like one of my best friends as a little kid. His older brother was a lot older than us, and he was totally into all that stuff. He was the one who had the Millennium Falcon who wouldn't let us touch it.
I'm still mad at that jerk.
Yeah, Eric. He was. Yeah.
Yeah,
was,
eat
like,
crap, Eric.
too cool
Wherever
for
you
school
are,
and,
eat
like,
crap. I hope you're choking on an ice cube right now because you wouldn't let BCR Duke play with your Millennium Falcon.
But he was totally into that stuff, and he would draw, and paint, and like was totally into Kiss and like all of that.
I'm a huge Kiss fan, so I understand that yearning. I'm not a huge heavy metal guy, but I am a big Kiss guy.
Sure, well, that's
because they're
that's
like toys. I mean, they're just like action figure people, you know.
I feel like Kiss is the pop art version of heavy metal.
That's exactly,
and that's not a dig at all.
No, and it is. It's the camp pop art version of that, which is really fun. And I was worried all week that you never got to look into his Millennium Falcon. I know you wanted to open that sucker up and see if Catra was in there.
No,
but she wasn't, probably.
Not true. You cannot mix toy lines. That is a big no-no.
What if Catra wants to play chess with Wookiee chess with old Chewbacca?
Effing bad for her.
Whoa! All right. Well, what's your number?
The only mixture you can mix universes. You cannot mix toy lines.
Oh my gosh! Well, what's number 3 for you?
Number 3 is Toy Biz's X-Men line, which was a separate line.
So great.
The best. I
got a bin of 100 of those sitting right over here. I got 100 of them sitting in the bin right now.
That Colossus figure, that Storm figure, that Wolverine figure with that stupid. No, just the first wave.
Oh, those
the Storm,
the Colossus with the big weight that he carries. And
everything? The big huge weight. The Wolverine with that crappy mask that was also a ring.
Horrible! I love it.
It was a ring, and then Storm was the best with that light up feature, and Magneto was terrible. And who else was in there? There was one other one.
I can't remember who was in that first wave. I had them, whoever they were.
Was it Nightcrawler?
Yes, it was Nightcrawler because he also had the pirate sword and the suction cup as well.
Yes, and his bendy tail.
Yes.
And then it was just off to the races for me. There was Sabretooth, Iceman,
Cable, that Cable came
Sauron,
out of my mind. Yep.
Rogue finally. Rogue was later, and she was my favorite X-Men.
Yep, and that figure's got that weird haircut on her. She looks so strange.
Yeah, which they repainted for Polaris and Domino and like 50 other people. I was so angry that I didn't have a Rogue figure in like the first 2 waves, and so I decided to buy a Storm and do my first custom.
That is hilarious.
And I made a jacket for her out of a brown sock, and I painted it. And made a button and put clay and painted it red and put an X on it and hot glued it to the coat. I sewed the coat, and it still exists and it's together. I took pictures of it.
That is so cool.
I painted her face. And it turned for a kid. I'll show you the pictures. It turned out. I am so proud of little me.
Well,
because
please post it on our Instagram. I want to see this.
I will. It's terrible, but it's like for a little kid, like a kid to get. I went and bought paintbrushes, the small kind, and I was so careful. Wow. And I thought I have a Rogue figure now, and it was the coolest thing in the world for me. So, but that that line was. When I started collecting comics, and it was just such a turning point for me as a collector because it opened me up into Marvel, and because I'd always been kind of, well, no, that's a lie. When I was a little kid, I was into Hulk and Spider-Man, and then He-Man took over my life, and that changed, but I was always kind of definitely aware of and liked Batman.
Oh yeah,
and Superman, but Marvel Comics and that whole world became a part of my life because of X-Men.
Oh yeah,
all those toys, and it was just
I was old enough to buy them for myself, and so I have everything from all of those waves of X-Men toys. I mean everything, even all the X-Force offshoots and all of that junk.
Totally, yeah.
You would freak out if you come pull the ones out of my toy bin.
oh god, what the couples set, the
Yep.
box of Gene
Yep.
and Scott, the
Yep.
like
My favorite is the
Dating
the
box? It's
Giants. Yep,
ridiculous.
the Giant side. The other great one was like not from X-Men, but they had a Spider-Man that was Mary Jane and Spider-Man Christmas ones,
Yeah.
where they were like in Christmas outfits. um, which was pretty funny. But the X-Men
So
one, my
funny.
favorite X-Men from that line is the Giant Size X-Men box set that was a Toys R Us exclusive, and that's where they came out with the really nice looking Colossus and the really
Right.
nice looking Storm. This is way down the line. This is years into
No,
the
I know
line.
what you're talking about.
Yeah, that was
I've
a
seen it.
really
I've
cool
seen that on
set.
eBay.
But I mean, these
Yeah.
were so popular. Every store had an exclusive. FAO Schwartz, Toys R Us, everybody had an exclusive box set of these figures,
Right.
and they were freaking everywhere. They choked the shelves everywhere.
That was when it was booming. I mean,
Yeah.
because initially for me it was that was definitely that Starcom toy comic store. That was exclusive there for me. I remember and having to like hunt for Iceman, which took forever.
Iceman, the first
Um,
one, the very first one was a tough one to find for a while. I think
Yeah.
I traded for mine from a guy that owned like a flea market style toy shop, and I think I traded for the Iceman and the first Human Torch.
Right.
I think I traded for those together because those were pretty
The,
hard to come
the
by.
second Human Torch was a lot nicer, and so was the second Magneto.
Oh, a million times nicer, a million times
Yeah.
better. They got better. Though that original Iceman, is really
God.
nice.
The yeah, it is. And the second one's nice too.
The second one's just big and bulky. He's huge.
Yeah, but the first one with the big,
The big
it's like a
surfboard slide
yeah,
thing.
it's basically a surfboard with ice on it. I loved
Hilarious.
that. What were the rest of? There's some kind of like random.
like Corsair was a cool one that I
Yep.
liked a lot, but I didn't really. From the cartoon, there were one or two episodes with him, and I got to know him that way. But Apocalypse was a terrible figure initially, and then they redid him.
Yes. In the Age of
Um,
Apocalypse line, that one was pretty good.
Yes.
But he was in sort of a different sort of colored outfit. But I love
And-
that they made characters that Marvel Legends has never touched. They made
Yeah.
so many characters. They made New Mutants. They made all kinds of stuff that never has been touched.
That's true. There was the whole
by
New
Marvel
Mutants
Legends.
line,
Yep.
wasn't there?
Well, I don't. It was on a whole line, but they had some figures branded in that. There was, I think, 4 or 5 of them branded in a New Mutants package. I think you
Okay,
might be
that's what I
right.
mean. Yeah.
that different card back.
Yeah, with the different card back,
and
like
different
Magic,
shape,
it's the
actually,
Magic,
yeah.
but the original style Magic, not the one that we got in Marvel
Right.
Legends, but it's her with the New Mutants outfit on one side and
Right.
then the other stuff on the other side. But they just went so deep into the Marvel, like, into the Marvel universe. They've done way more than Marvel Legends has ever done.
Oh, sure.
I mean, we're
Absolutely.
still maybe 70% through what Toy Biz did in the 90s.
We don't even have like long shot or
Not a good one.
Um,
They had them toy.
no.
Yeah, they're not a good one. Yeah, they
well,
made
not from Hasbro.
Not from Hasbro. I mean, there's so many more they can make, like that were part of the '90s ones that were so great.
Oh, and you mean like it just in total?
Yeah, just in total. There's
Marvel
so
Legends
many
in total,
more
yeah.
that have been
No, that's
made
true.
that I have figures of that just haven't been made really nicely. in
Well, yeah,
Marvel
like,
Was there a
Legends.
Corsair? Has there been a Corsair Marvel Legends
no,
figure?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
There hasn't been a.
None of those characters have been made. None of those characters have been made.
Who else was there?
They made all of those guys from that group.
Oh
They
well, there was
made-
we just got Sauron, so there's
Right,
Sauron.
Sauron just got made, but how long did that take? You know what I mean?
Yeah, a
it
while.
took forever. I mean, how long did it take us to get an original Cable in this Marvel Legends line? I mean, my God,
That's such a great
it
figure.
took
I
forever.
love that figure.
But that's the figure. That's my favorite figure from that X-Men line. Is the original Cable where he's got the chop, like his
Yes.
right arm is like karate chop.
Yes.
And what was cool? What was cool is remember they scaled these figures up to a 10-inch scale. And came out with a 10-inch line too. They were so
Right.
popular. I had a bunch of those,
Which was
as well.
actually pretty extensive. I didn't collect that
There's
line, but it was.
hundreds of those. There's
Yeah.
hundreds of those across all the different lines that they had.
Another one of my favorites was Forge, and
Forge is a great one
Banshee.
too. Yeah.
Banshee with the whistle in his back.
Yeah, but he
that
had
was
the
amazing.
plastic wings, and he was in this blue outfit,
Yeah.
which was pretty interesting as a different look for him.
Yeah.
Well, this sort of bleeds into my number 2, which is also a Toy Biz Marvel line, but it is the Toy Biz Spider-Man animated line.
Yes.
And that animated series from the early 90s or the middle 90s, and these figures to this day are at the top of my list in toy lines that I love. They got really deep into the animated roster. The animated cartoon still holds up pretty well today, and they made everything. I mean, they made everything, and they even made Mary Jane. I mean, she was a repaint, but they made her. And they even made a Peter Parker. They made
repaint of Rogue.
She's a Rogue repaint, but but what was great is no, she's a repaint of somebody like that. I can't remember which one, but she's a repaint of one of the X-Men ones. But what I loved is they even made Peter Parker. It's like the first time I ever had a Peter Parker figure, and he came with his camera, and I was just like, this is the coolest thing in the whole world. And they had a Daily Bugle playset, and they had J. Jonah Jameson, and they had a Kingpin playset, and all kinds of other really cool stuff. And it was such a deep line and such an incredible line, and I loved how cartoony they were and all the different... It's the first time I ever got a super articulated Spider-Man figure was in this line. He had like 15 points of articulation maybe. And still to this day, I have several of those sitting on the shelves because I do have a Toy Biz shelf, but they are put away at the moment. But yeah, I still have all these figures. I got the Daily Bugle. I can send pictures of them and we put them on our Instagram. They're such a cool line.
I just looked up the Christmas Spider-Man and Mary Jane.
I told you she's got her little red skirt on and everything.
It is ridiculous.
It is the
in the
dumbest
best
looking
way.
thing. Save that photo and post it on our Instagram because it is the dumbest thing you've ever seen.
It looks custom. I mean, it's so...
Toy Biz, so Jesse Falcon, those Toy Biz guys, they would throw these things together for like holidays. Like every holiday had a cheesy Marvel figure at Toys R Us. It was like so amazingly crappy. And it was they repainted everything over and over and over and over. I mean, they used these molds until they were dead. They're so cheesy.
I'm trying to think of who. I'm looking up the Mary Jane figure, and I'm trying to figure because
I can't remember.
Well, there's
who
the one
she's
in the
like.
famous couples.
That's
package.
the Famous Couples is the one that I had, and I can't remember. I was so excited to get that.
And there's
Trust me,
the
when I
doll.
found that at Toys R Us, I thought it was the greatest thing in the entire world.
Yeah.
And there used to be a great archive of Toy Biz Marvel figures, but I don't think it's up anymore. But they had everything archived. The animated...
Is she super rare or something? Because I can't find her
I
at
think
all.
the only one is that Famous Couples one.
Okay.
I think that's the only one. They made her in a doll scale.
Yes,
But I
I've
think
seen, I'm seeing
one,
that.
her color is like she has a yellow shirt on.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
blue
one.
jean, acid wash blue jeans.
That's her from the cartoon. Is the famous
Purple.
The Famous Couples one is that one.
Yeah,
And
that's
that was a tough
definitely
one to come by. That was a real hard one to come by at the time.
Really?
Yeah, and it's pretty.
Wow.
I think it's still pretty popular to this day. Like that's still a pretty popular set.
Well, I mean, it's actually a good set. It's not.
It's not, and you
it
get a
comes
nice
with
Peter Parker head and
Peter
everything.
Parker, yeah, and he's articulated well for an early figure. Has a winch.
Yep.
And she is definitely. Oh gosh, she looks like a drag queen.
Yeah, it's not good. It's
little
not
bit.
good. I think this head, it's some X-Men head, and I can't remember which one it is.
It is an X-Men
but
head. It's a Jean.
It's a Jean. I think it's a Jean head. But
it's like it looks really dull. It's like they used it
it's
too many
not
times.
pleasant. But we'll put up something on Instagram. What's your number 2?
My number 2 is the Kenner Batman animated series toy line.
Oh,
which
it made it
was
much
on your
higher
list.
than me. That's right.
Oh yes,
You got 2 spots higher than me.
That
It
took over my life.
deserves number 1. If my number 1 wasn't number 1, it was in my top 5, and I was having trouble placing it.
It absolutely took over my life. It was that cartoon was like the thing I looked forward to every day.
Yep.
I was like waiting with bated breath to see who was going to be the villain that day. It was so well done and so well performed and so well written, and the music was amazing. So I know it's not about a cartoon, but it's actually about a cartoon because the toy line and the cartoon
That's why
for me
G.I. Joe's
were
so
the
great.
same thing.
Yep.
So and then they had these toys come out, and it was like they were so beautifully done.
Oh yeah, they're it's like some of the best work they ever did in that company.
Of course, it took them forever and a day to release a Batgirl figure, which, again, I was like, "You've got to be kidding me!"
But she's great. She's pretty great.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and then they made like 700 of them. But when Riddler came out, that was a huge highlight for me. Catwoman with those claws.
Oh yeah. I love the Bruce Wayne.
Penguin
I love
with
the Bruce Wayne.
with Penguin with the soft goods thing. Was that he had the soft goods? Was that the animated line? Did he have the soft goods cape?
I'm trying to
coat?
remember. I don't think he did.
Didn't he? Why am I
I
thinking
don't
that?
know. The Batman animated series expert I know is old Julius Marks, Daniel Pickett, and
Oh yeah,
he would know, and I can't remember, but he's the ultimate
I talk
Batman
to him all
animated
the
series
time.
collector. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm pretty sure he had a soft goods.
He may have. I never had that penguin. I had.
But that
I think
ugly-
I had everything.
that
I never
ugly
think I ever had that
face.
penguin.
That ugly face was so funny. And the Man Bat figure
Oh
with
yeah,
the
my gosh,
button.
that
Yes,
figure is
yes,
so
that
cool.
penguin absolutely had a soft goods
Okay, I'd forgotten about
tux
that
coat. Yeah. And then Scarecrow.
one. Yep.
With that weird arm,
Mhm.
like winch arm. It was so, just such a
The
fun line.
Two-Face is so great, and then when they made
Yeah.
those later on, when they moved the line down the line, and they even made all kinds of different villains in those big packs, like 5 or 6 of them together.
Yeah, and the oh gosh, the Poison Ivy.
Yes.
And then like 7 versions of Mr. Freeze, and they made the Mr. Freeze with like the tarantula, robotic tarantula
Yes.
body.
Yep.
So cool. Yeah, the multi packs were definitely a fun thing and a definite KB Toys experience for me.
Oh.
They were always things I would find at KB Toys. They were flooded with those Batman lines, particularly anything that had that Batgirl with the fists, like just in 17
that
different
Batgirl was
shades of gray.
everywhere. She was
Yeah.
everywhere. Yeah.
And then there was the Bat Cave that came with Alfred, which I wanted so badly, but I had the one from Batman Returns, so I never got it.
No.
I never had the Alfred figure.
On a side note, sorry, go ahead.
No, Phantasm was the one I was trying to think of.
Oh yeah, Mask of the Phantasm. That was a fun figure.
yeah,
I mean, you get
that
a cool
pack was
female, you get a
cool.
cool female figure with that outfit on, and
Yeah.
you could even remove the helmet, and you could see that it was her, which was really cool.
Yeah. And then of course Harley.
Yeah, that Harley
was an
Quinn. That
amazing
was a big
figure.
one for me. Was Harley Quinn? I really loved. That was one of my favorite. Her and Robin were probably my 2 favorite
Mhm.
from that line.
Creeper. I
Yeah.
forgot about him.
Oh yeah.
With that heavy thing, that heavy
There's so
fur
many
coat.
of them. Killer Croc, and I mean, they made so many figures for that
Oh,
line.
The ventriloquist. That's a great
that
figure
one might.
because
That
the
one's
hand
probably,
goes up the little
that
slot
could
in the
be-
doll.
The hand goes where? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well,
That might be one of the best ones in the line. I know people
Yeah.
that collected, they were very excited when that figure came out. On a weird side note, my favorite Batman playset of all time is the Batman Forever Batcave, where it's like the 3 tiers and it's huge.
yes.
That's my favorite of the Batman playsets.
I've
Just
never seen that in person.
Oh
and
my
I
god,
didn't
it's so
have
cool!
It.
It's so cool, and it's huge. It's got to be 4 feet long. I mean, it's huge. It's really, really a neat. If you want to do a cool Batman setup at your house with that sort of scale figure, that 4 to 5 inch figure,
Right.
you got to have that Batcave. It's so cool.
Well, there was a Batman Forever cave Wayne Manor thing that was the reuse again.
That was the
of
reuse, and
Batman
then they did
Returns.
one that was 3 levels, so you could park the
Right.
Batmobile at the bottom, and then there's another level, and then a third level.
Oh, I see this.
That,
Yeah, I'm looking
would
it
be
up.
like his control center and
Oh,
the Batwing and all that. It's one of the
So
coolest play
cool.
sets that they ever made.
With
And,
those weird
it's
metal
yep.
kind of structure.
Mhm.
That's
It's
so
the Art Deco-y things that keep it together, and it's still pretty collectible today. People will fight you on it on eBay, because it's a pretty collectible, very displayable.
there's-
If you love Batman, it's a very displayable piece.
There's one that's really it's in perfect condition for $250. That's crazy.
You can get
when
it.
they're
You can get it
doing
for less than that. You probably get it for $100 in really good condition.
that. Ooh,
So I'm gonna go on to number 1. Are you ready for number
Yes.
1? The number
Number
one,
one.
my number 1, Colonel Reigns' number 1 toy line of the 1990s. Still one of my favorite toy lines, and they are a little cartoony, but that is such a deep line. Hundreds and hundreds of figures were made for it. And it's
trying to think.
one of my all-time favorite properties. And they in the 90s was when this was king on television. They had what did they have? 1, 2, 3, 4 TV shows in a 10-year period that were on, and they made movies.
okay.
And
God.
it is such a great. And I have about 300 figures sitting next to me right now. I'm playing with who am I got in my hand right here? I've got Sulu. I've got Lieutenant Commander Sulu sitting here in my hand, and the line is called Playmates Star Trek.
I cannot believe
Number one,
forgot
Playmates Star Trek.
Playmates Star Trek. I cannot believe I forgot
Are
about
you
Star
telling
Trek:
me
The Next Generation.
it's not your number one?
No,
Oh my God.
but I cannot
This
believe
line, there's a Voyager line, there's a Deep Space Nine line, there's an original series line, there's a Next Gen line, and they made hundreds and hundreds of figures.
Good.
There's a giant, incredible Next Generation bridge playset. They made all the ships. Oh my God.
And an engineering play
from
set.
Generations. They have 3 different scales. They have the doll, like the 10-inch dolls, the 9-inch dolls. They have the 12-inch figures. They have the little figure, the 4-inch figures. They're articulated. They're really
They
nice.
have a Lwaxana Troy figure.
Yes.
With luggage.
They have mini figures. They have the Borg Queen where you can take her little her bust piece out. They have everything. That line was
such a good line.
A huge nerd line. They were numbered. Everyone loved them. They were hugely collectible at the time.
They have Whoopi Goldberg.
There's, in fact, 3 or 4 different Whoopies, actually.
They're so good.
I have so many variants of so many characters, and if I had to boil it down from all of my... Deep Space Nine is my favorite Star Trek series, and so my favorite figure is probably the later release of Captain Sisko with his bald head. He has the bed. Towards the end of the line, they started giving them thigh articulation so they could sit better in the playsets.
Yeah.
And that figure with the bald head is one of my favorite figures from the line.
Well, it's, I think, a better look for him anyway.
It was a cooler look, and he was such an interesting guy, and I love that series. And we'll do a whole podcast.
Oh, yeah, he's a
we'll
great
do a
character.
whole
We have to.
a whole
I-
Star Trek toy podcast sometimes. There's so many Star
I
Trek
am
toys.
such a Star Trek fan.
Me too.
And I not as much the original series, but everything else.
Oh, I watched the original series on reruns when I was a kid, and then as soon as the other one came out, I was crazy about all of them. I love them all.
No, Star Trek Next Generation I watched, and that was another one. Was like I was little, and my cousin and I would watch that, and we were like, it's on. This, what's the new one?
Oh yeah.
I was obsessed with Riker and Troy and Crusher and Geordi, and I wanted it. And
Geordi's my favorite from that series.
I would use my mom's banana combs to like pretend to be Geordi.
Of course.
So awesome.
Of course. And it's such a cool toy line, and it's still collectible.
It is.
They're not valuable, but they're still very collectible. People still collect that line. They make customs.
And they're beautiful.
Yeah.
And they look like the people, which
They
is
do.
at this small scale. They are,
do.
unmistakably. Some of the coolest choices too, like the sisters,
Yep.
the Klingon sisters.
They made in the Generations line. Yeah.
What's Worf's wife?
Yep, they made her.
Oh God, Q and like 15 different outfits.
Yep, they've got Q in his Deep Space Nine, Next Generation, and his judge's robes. I mean, they've got all kinds of different.
The judge's robe figure is my favorite one.
Like 5 different Borg variants. There's so many great figures from that line. And the thing is, I've got like several hundred of them, and I don't even have close to all of them. Like, I don't even have all of them.
No, there's
so
many,
and I
every
don't
once
have
in a
them
while
all.
I'll look up and I'll be like, let's see like what cheapy, because you can get them for nothing.
You can get
So,
them
like-
if you're buying them for more than $1 or $2, you're spending too much money.
Yeah, that's true. I bought I bought a few because I went and I watched all of the Next Generation, Voyager, Deep Space Nine, all the way through, and then I watched
Sweet.
Enterprise, which I actually really love.
I like Enterprise too.
I really liked that show. It starts weird, but then it gets
I
really
think it gets good. I think it's good. Yeah.
But I was like, oh, I want more Star Trek toys because that was one line. That was the first line I bought that I kept all mint on card. I never opened any of them.
Wow. Okay.
Which was weird. It was like kind of, that was the first, and then some of the Batman Returns, I kept mint on card as well.
Interesting.
But that was my first toy line that I didn't open.
Wow.
I just loved how they looked, and I wanted to keep them as like and think they were going to be valuable.
Of course,
course,
which they aren't.
I probably curse them because anytime I do something like that with a toy, it ends up being worth
That's
nothing.
what every nerd did back then. They kept them in the package and thought
Yeah,
they'd be valuable, and they
exactly.
are not valuable at all.
Exactly. But I cannot believe I forgot. That's weird that I would
hate you.
forget that.
I'm really disappointed in you. But one more thing
You
I'll
should
say.
be.
One more thing I'll say about this line
It's
is
ridiculous.
they started to get smart about it towards the end of the line, and they sort of put a line together where it was all the different series in one line, and they started
Mhm.
making really neat characters that they hadn't made before, and weird variants like the City on the Edge of Forever variants, and a bunch of villains, and the Gorn and Mugatu, and a lot of figures they'd never made before, and like Lita, the Dabo girl from Deep Space Nine, and all that different stuff. And it was just kind of sad that it sort of ended on a high note because they were making so many great figures towards the end, and it just sort of you can watch this in the Toys That Made Us. They'll tell you all about the Star Trek toys from Playmates. You don't need to listen to us, but go watch the Toys That Made Us on Netflix. They'll tell you all about these toys.
Yeah.
So what is BCR Duke's number one 90s toy?
Oh, my favorite is the Kenner Batman Returns line. Not an ongoing long-term line, but a line that definitely set me off, down the road of being complete
dear
nerd.
Lord, well, who needs Arctic Batman and Electric Shock Batman and
I needed Arctic Batman. Arctic
and
Batman
Farting Batman
and Bruce Wayne and Catwoman and Penguin and a Penguin army and
Those
Robin
figures
that
are so
looked like
crappy.
Marlon Wayans with his flat top that they painted white because he was cut from the
Oh
movie.
my God.
I wish that they'd remake that and just somehow and make an animated version of that original script where Catwoman was more the main villain and stole the thing from the cat from the museum or whatever, and there was a map or something. I don't know. It was there was another script that was fully done, and that included Robin. I think that's how it worked. But there was another script that got axed at the last minute, and then they made the one that we saw. But I think it would be cool to make an animated version
for
of
sure.
that.
Why not?
Because it's done, it's written. But yeah, all of those Batman variants, that was kind of another first for me. Was variants? I have to have all of these.
Oh dear Lord, they were so cheesy.
I know. Well, but they were fun. The Arctic one was one of my favorites, and because it was playable. Because it was he's gonna go, beat up Penguin, and he has to get through this thing. My favorite variant was the one, I can't remember the name of it, but it was the one that had the gray and dark navy blue Batman outfit.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And
one.
it looked like the retro. It was like a modern version of '60s Batman. That was my favorite one to use. I also loved the glider one because his arms snapped up and had the bigger cape. Those were great. There was one that was had a snap-on jetpack with wings on the side.
There was one that had everything you can think of. Everyone, anything you can think of. This line had it. It was so popular. Yeah, it was so popular.
Mm-hmm. Thunder Whip Batman. I remember that one.
Oh my God!
Long batarang on a plastic whip.
Oh lordy, so cheesy.
There was Arctic Batman was definitely one of my favorites. Air Attack Batman is the one I'm thinking of.
I'm not gonna lie, I love the Michael Keaton Bruce Wayne figure, even though it's a crappy figure, and I was crazy when that Robin came out. I was so excited.
Totally.
And I remember.
And Catwoman was
impossible to find, and if you found her,
I got him at Toys R Us, and I remember freaking out that night. It was a Friday night, and we were going out to the movies. I was in high school. We had cars, or I was in college, I guess. No, high school when that one came out, and I went and got that Robin, and right before we went to the movies, and it was pretty exciting. But I only cherry picked those like Catwoman and Penguin and Batman himself and Robin, because the rest of them were for the little kiddies like you, because you were born in what, 89 or something like that?
Yeah, 90.
Oh, 90. Okay, so
I played with them when I was 2.
Oh, how lovely! That is so cute.
You're right.
That is so cute.
Another one of my favorite things from that line, before I forget this, was the custom coupe, which was
Oh,
bizarre toy. It was a car. Did you have that?
No.
Oh, yeah. It was part of the Batman Returns line, and it was you put the Bruce Wayne figure in it, and then he would drive. It looked like this cool black coupe with this. You couldn't see through the windshield, but you would push a lever on the spoiler, I think, on the back, and it would change the figure out, and then you would open it, and it would be Batman sitting in there.
Oh, dear Lord.
That was a really cool
hilarious.
car. And then the Bat Ski, which was terrible. It was like the boat he uses in the movie, and it had like a ski. It was like a plane, but it would also be a giant jet ski type plane boat thing.
Oh my gosh, so cheesy.
And then the Wayne Manor playset. That was the first version of that they had. The threefold.
That's right. That is the
Wayne
first
Manor
one they did.
Batcave
That they reused over
factory.
and over again. Yeah, they reused it over and over again.
But that one I like the best because it has the best Wayne Manor front. It looks like an actual house. It's not
It does.
camouflage
That's
or
true.
purple or
Nonsense.
condemned
Yeah,
looking.
or total nonsense.
I love it. I still have it. It's in perfect condition. It has the breakthrough skylight panels. It's so fun. The turnaround batsuit cabinet.
Yep.
So good.
Well, I am
Um,
frankly disgusted that Playmate Star Trek was not on your list.
I cannot believe that
This disgusted with you. Also, Power
No,
of the
you
Force
should
was
be.
not on your list either, and you should go
No.
straight to hell for that choice.
Aren't I already in hell?
Oh, right, yeah, that.
No,
Well,
I
you are in
absolutely-
Michigan, so maybe.
I'm trying. No, oh man! Wow.
No, just kidding. You
And
people
all
from
the
Michigan.
Michiganders
I'm
just
just
shut off their
kidding. I'm just
podcasts.
kidding. You guys keep Ted Nugent right up there. We're doing great, guys.
Oh God. Unsubscribe. Yeah, I'm trying to think of Star Trek Next Generation would probably go.
Number one is where it should
That
go.
would it would have been my number 5. It would have
Number
been Batman-
one.
Number 1 would have been
Oh,
Batman
get outta
Returns.
here.
2 is animated. 3 is Toy Biz X-Men. 4
Oh,
is
you're
DC
killing me.
superheroes.
You're killing
And 5
me.
would have been Next Generation.
I
Even though
hate
I didn't
you.
open them.
That is so weird.
Um,
Have you opened them to this day, I hope, and played
No.
with them?
No, even the newer ones, or not newer ones, but the ones that I've collected since, like the random characters I didn't have.
I feel like I have a weird story about Star Trek Playmates. Like, my friend went to Patrick Stewart's house and maybe switched his Patrick Stewart figure out for the one that Patrick Stewart owned. But I
Oh my
cannot
God.
confirm if that is a true
What friend is
story.
that?
I cannot say. But I can't confirm if that is a true story or not. It may
You
have
can't
been.
confirm, or you won't confirm.
I can't confirm, and I don't know if it's a true story or not, but I heard that may have happened. I'm not really sure.
Wow. Wait a minute.
Nope. Nobody gets to know. And that's where we're going to end this podcast.
Yeah,
is
but
on a
I mean, if I had to
horrible-
guess what friend
Don't
it
you
is,
dare. Don't
I
you
know what friend it
dare.
is.
You don't know. You don't know. The friend is Geordie the Forge. No,
right.
It's LeVar Burton. He went there. My buddy LeVar Burton. We were
It's Madonna in her blank costume.
we were reading On a Rainbow and we went over to his house. No, but you guys, thanks for listening to episode 7 of Each Sold Separately, Collect Them All. I would like to say this week is if you do have us on iTunes, please put 5 stars on iTunes. We got 5 stars right now and a lot of great comments. We really love your comments. We'd love for you to keep engaging with us on all of our social media platforms. And I love it when you do, of course, in person, if you see BCR Duke at one of his fancy opera performances, wherever he's singing his little heart out, even though he's just thinking about She-Ra on the inside.
Opera. Just because I'm at the opera house doesn't
I
mean
know,
I
you're
actually
singing your
sing opera.
musical theater.
Or standards, or rock,
your
or
old
whatever.
standards or whatever it is, and you can look up all
Never
kinds of
opera.
great videos of him singing all over the internet. Just look up, Brian Charles Rooney on YouTube, and you will
Yeah, you could do that.
nothing but singing on there. But you guys, please 5 stars on iTunes if you like the show, and please engage with us. And we, of course, will be back with you soon next week. In
Yes,
fact.
and please check out Instagram at Each Sold Separately Podcast. We will be posting stuff,
Yes, we
references
will.
from this episode over the next 2 days.
Last week I posted the photo of me opening my first Star Wars toy, which was
Yes.
the 12-inch C-3PO, which is standing. He is the first toy you see when you come into my toy room, and he's still here to this day.
Oh.
So you guys have a great week, and BCR Duke, I'll see you next time on
See you
Each
next
Sold
time.
Separately. Collect them
Live
all.
long and prosper.
Not strawberry shortcake podcast. All right, see you later. All right, bye.
Have a very good weekend, everybody.
Oh my gosh.
Traveler, welcome to the promenade. Humble quark at your service. Behold, Star Trek Deep Space Nine action figures. Commander Benjamin Sisko, he helps me run the station. And Security Chief Odo, very strict and sneaky for someone so honest. Here's Lieutenant Dax, and Chief O'Brien, and Major Kira Nerys. I happen to know she's crazy about me. Wonderful, aren't they? Especially this one. So handsome. Pains me to part with it, but if you pay me now, security. What a pleasant surprise.